Kyle, Yang, and David Lin from Taipei, my cinematographers. Some people who went on the trip, Sherman Tang, John and Christina Wong. Anybody else? I can't remember if I asked anybody else to come up here. Is anybody else in the movie who's here that I forgot to mention? No. Okay. And then I'm not going to ask all the Indigo contributors to come up here. There's 1,500 of you. No, there's a lot, like 400 people. Okay, come, please. Please, come. Under there. All right, so Sherman. I think there's other people who are producing, I'm not sure if they're here, but thank you so much. Questions?
Well, can I start off with one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much for sharing this film. How did you find and how did you select which stories to show out of all of the wonderful?
How did I select you guys? Do you remember how I got to? Okay, actually, Sherman has kind of a funny story.
Yeah. All right. So I've got this really funny story. I used to travel to the Bay Area like every day, every week for 4 years. Right? It was a small startup. And on my flight, I would meet a lot of very cool people. And one time I met this professor at UC Santa Cruz, right? LS Kim. And on the plane, you always ask, hey, what were you flying up the day for? What are you traveling for? And I said, I'm under this company, and then I asked her what she's doing. She said, oh, I'm professor of Asian American film, and I go, oh, really? That's really interesting. And then somehow we got on this topic of the Love Boat. And then she goes, hey, I have a friend named Valerie at San Francisco State University. I go, wow, that's really cool. And she goes, would you like to meet her? Or I go, yeah, man, I have nothing but great things to say about the Love Boat. So she introduced us. We sent a couple emails with Valerie. And I think that was kind of like maybe early on in the development. It was fantastic. It was great meeting her. I'm so honored to be associated and affiliated with this effort. It's I wish the trip would still be going on. I wish I could send my kids there. I wish they could not like last year's kids going, man, that really sucked. I do not want my kids going to a really sucky event. But no, it's super event. Yeah.
So I found out about the film because I blogged for this Asian American blog called 8 Asians. And I wrote this blog post about the Love Boat because there was this article in the New York Times talking about governments such as Israel and Taiwan having these overseas programs. And so in this blog post, I have a scanned-in image of my ID from the Love Boat. And then when the film was starting, when Valerie was creating her Facebook page, she used my photo ID as the user icon of the Love Boat page. It's like, who's this Valerie that's using my photo without my permission to represent the Love Boat? So it's like I appreciate it, but could you not use my face as the icon on Facebook?
And actually, that picture didn't even make it into the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you posted on Facebook that you wanted to do a doc, and I was like, oh, I went on that trip, and I'm a hoarder, and so I have lots of archives for you, bags and bags of stuff, and I want to show that I once hooked up with a Chinese guy, so that's important for me to immortalize. French-Chinese guy, thank you very much. So lots of international diplomacy happening through my mouth.
Say there's another quote that didn't make it, where you said, I'm going to learn French kissing from the source. And it's
Are there any questions? You all?
Back here.
Okay, I have my.
Here.
Oh.
Bring your hand, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Jay. As someone who didn't go to Love Boat, but I went to a different program in mainland China, I was curious, I saw like some of it in the film, but have you continued to think about your Chinese American or Taiwanese American or like other hyphenated identities as you watch this film and reflect back on other people's experiences?
Well, I mean, I teach in Asian American studies, so I think about it a lot. I mean, I don't even know if that is like why I teach in Asian American studies anymore or now, but who knows, right? Like I said, it's just like this little seed. So, I don't know. Yes, I think about it a lot.
Well, as I mentioned, I've been blogging for Asian since its inception, so January 2007, so 12 years. So, well, I think moving out more to California kind of awakened that more than necessarily the Love Boat, because when you come out, I grew up in Western Massachusetts and there were barely any Asians. And so coming out here during the .com boom, it was like, wow, there are like Asian police officers? What the hell is that?
So from the film you saw, I'm originally from Toronto, land of the CBCs, and I came to LA, California in '95, and started working in the computer field. And I think if it wasn't for the trip and my appreciation of the Chinese culture, that I wouldn't end up being in this, Asian community, strong, tech-driven industry that really blossomed in Taiwan, right? Now, I'm still in the tech field. I travel to Taiwan 4 times a year. I travel to Shanghai, Beijing regularly, probably do a couple 100,000 miles to Asia on a regular basis. I mean, it's really helped me spend time on culture, language, speaking. I mean, you have to be able to speak some language in order to be productive in that environment. And outside of going there to teach English, like a bunch of my friends did, I can't read or write, but I can speak okay. And I think this trip really, really benefited. I benefited from being on that trip.
I'm not Taiwanese, I'm third generation Chinese American, and my family's from Toisan in southern China, so this was just, yes, San Francisco, we were here forever. Laundries, goddammit, laundries. So for me, this was like, the most Chinese thing about it was like, oh, $400, I'm there. But for me, it was really like this false, I think it really confirmed for me that there is, like, when these other subjects are like, I'm so proud to be Taiwanese. I didn't have that moment, clearly, because I'm not Taiwanese, and it was more like, I think just watching the behavior of just like this devolved behavior of all the other people on the trip made me realize this is really what it means to be Asian American, is that we're just spoiled and kind of terrible and repressed and awful, and that's why I love being Chinese American. But no, but to me it was like this whole like searching for the homeland thing to me is like a false construct, and I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with just like I accept that I can't like just, or I'm gonna just learn a language and become more Chinese. I think it's just understanding, that this is who I am now in relationship to this experience, and this is where I feel different, and this is where I feel an affinity. But I definitely I still feel that Chinese American identity is something that you don't really learn it in 6 weeks. It's just something we're constantly evolving and experiencing.
I just want to see if David and Kyle recording want to add anything since they're over there paying the crew people, yeah. Here. Ori did an amazing job editing. We edited this movie in like a month and a half because we wanted to get it into the film festival. it was insane. So I think thank you, Corey. I'm so sorry. Do you have anything, David, Kyle? Any more questions?
Thank you for this hugely entertaining film and sharing all your unfiltered experiences. I'm wondering if there was any sort of political driver or motivator for making it. For example, bringing Left Vote back in the way that you all experienced it, or just if that was part of the consideration at all.
You know, when I started to make this movie back in like 2014, I didn't actually even know the status of Love Boat, so I didn't know that they had broken it in 2013. So, I didn't really have any motivation except that I thought it was a really kind of an interesting program, because if you're Chinese or Taiwanese American of a certain age, you know, you pretty much know somebody who went on it or already went on it. I mean, how many people know someone who went on it, right? Okay, a lot of people. And then either that or if you're not that, you have never heard of it before. So who has never heard this before? All right, okay, so to me it was like this weird thing. It's like it's such a big phenomenon among certain people and then totally invisible to a lot of other people. So that was what was really fascinating to me about it.
We'll go and push back in. Okay. Hi. So as many of us, or some of us know that today was a big day for Taiwan. Yeah, I just remember one of the girls in the film, she kind of commented on this very like heteronormative experience. So we're just kind of curious, like, if there's a reason behind like why not more of the marginalized voices of Love Boat were kind of elaborated in this film.
So like more queer voices?
Just kind of like
Yeah.
people who didn't have a good experience
Oh,
with Love Boat, and including people who may not have the same kind of romance
That
interest.
movie was in there, yeah. Well, I mean, I have to say there were some people who told me they would be in the movie who had like interesting experiences with their first girlfriend or boyfriend, but then they didn't want to be on camera. And I don't know why that is, you know, like queer people. But yeah, that's true. I really felt like Christina did a little bit of dissing on the program too, which I thought, you know, was good because it gave some perspective. Because not everybody had a good time, right? Yeah, a lot of people like. I mean, I don't even know if I had that good a time because it was too hot.
You definitely saw some, like, I think you mentioned, like, the entitlement part. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, there were definitely some that were, like, really spoiled and, like, felt entitled. It's like, oh, this is, like, there's no air conditioning, or, like, this food sucks, or I'm bored, or things like that. But for the most...
Food did suck. Food on campus did suck. And it repeated like every 3 days. Watery peanut butter and congee everywhere.
Well, I would say for the most part, most people did have fun. I mean, it was, for a lot of people, the first time they'd been around a lot of other Taiwanese Americans or Asian Americans. And it was weird because I was telling Valerie this. It seemed like I was in the oldest group and everybody graduated college. And so like half the people I was with were like going off to med school or grad school. And it's just like, but you felt like you had so similar backgrounds. So I think a lot of people enjoyed the trip.
Next question. Okay, in the back.
Hi Valerie, congratulations. You showed a couple here that met on the trip and then re-met many years later and got married. You were one. I was one person that I talked to, and you were asking them on Facebook whether there were couples and are any couples that met and married. With all your interviews, do you have any idea how many couples from all these trips?
I don't know, but a lot of people did just like contact me out of the blue. Once I started doing the crowdfunding, they found out about it, and they said, I met my husband and my wife. You know? And then they would say, and then my kids went on the trip like when they were old enough. Because they met in the 70s or something. So a lot of people. But we picked this couple because they met relatively recently, and I'm wanted to shoot their wedding. And they're also very young and cute, right? I mean, there are some people who like met, like, yeah, there was a couple in LA who met in '79 and they came to the screening, they said, we met on the trip. And they're really, you know, they're like in their 60s. So, I think a lot of people did.
I mean, I had friends that met on the trip. I mean, they were just friends on the trip and then didn't date until maybe like 5 or 7 years later when they happened to be in the same city.
Did you all hook up?
No, I did not hook up. I made a lot of new friends.
Me too.
No, like John said, changed up. No. We had friends that on alternate trips that got married. We had friends on your trip. You went in '93, right?
Yeah.
We had friends on his trip that you may or may not know that went to the same university that got married. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of friends at my school, at Waterloo, that tried to continue dating after the trip, and it's really hard. You know, when you're California, Toronto, New York,
France.
yeah, or international. I mean, it's really hard to do that for like longer than a year, right? And then it normally doesn't last. But I mean, a lot of people try. A lot of people try.
Did Judy Chu hook up?
Yes. Wait, no. So she's married to Mike, that other dude who's a congressman, and he went on the trip. I don't know if they went on the same trip, but they both went on the, what's his name, Mike Gang? Mike Gang? Mike Gang.
So how did you find out that?
How did I find, everybody knows that Judy Chu went on the trip. I don't know why. But I don't know. I have no idea why. Yeah, but
And she was obviously receptive to being interviewed.
she was really into it. And she sent me all her pictures right away, and she's just, yeah, she's very enthusiastic. She's on the Taiwan caucus in Congress. So she's the person that the organizers were looking for. She's the one, right? Out of all these thousands of kids who went, she's the one. She and that dude who was on BuzzFeed, Justin Tan, he's the other way. He was like, and here, and Eddie Huang, right, who broke the back off the boat. I think he just had an episode where the kids went on the trip.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, they're scattered around. There's a bunch of these people. The guy in Star Trek.
Yeah, Garrett.
Garrett Wong.
Yeah.
Garrett Wong. Wong Lee Hong, who wouldn't be in my movie. I don't know why. Wong Lee Hong on Love Boat. Yeah, if you don't, let him know. So, yeah, a lot of, I mean, you know, like thousands of people went on this trip. So, yeah, Christina, of course. All right.
Next question. Up front? Okay. You.
Hi. I have a question because Love Boat is such about like Chinese culture, and was like started by the KMT, and so were there any like indigenous Taiwanese people who were on the trip, and like can you just address like the erasure of like indigenous?
You know, I think later on in the program, when the DPP took it over, they had separate trips for the indigenous folks, right? And so, like, I know someone who went on the trip who was, from the indigenous groups in Taiwan. I don't know why they did they let them mix?
Yeah, but we went on a one-day, maybe 2-day outing where we visited indigenous.
Oh, the villages.
But I was so hungover most of the time. I was like, what's this? Like, I mean, a lot. Obviously, I was lost, but we did have 1 or 2 days where we met. It was like a village. It was sort of like a tourist village.
It's like the place in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Polynesian village in Hawaii, it's like that, except it's in Taiwan. And then you see these like native Indians, you were like, wow, this is totally weird.
I have to say, the KMT probably was not the most sensitive to indigenous people's rights, just saying. But yeah, but when the DPP came in, I think that they tried to alleviate a little bit of that.
My name's Augie, Love Boat 1981, and my wife and brother went on Love Boat 80, so we had an indirect connection in terms of the connection. Really appreciate all the people that were involved, including the people behind the scenes in terms of this production. One of the comments that really stood out for me was the lady who talked about how the entitled overseas Chinese kind of, the waves parted, everything moved aside during rush hour for the buses to go through. And sometimes as empowered first world people, we don't realize the implications of some of our experiences, which we say suck, but imagine how much more suck for people whose lives got disrupted. One thing, have you received any comments from the Taiwan leaders? Have they seen the final version?
We haven't shown
Any
it yet in
comments?
Taiwan. We're showing it next on the 26th in May, so I'm a little worried about that. But they did sign their release forms, so they can't sue me. Although they really do not like it that it's called Love Boat Taiwan. I'm just going to say
That's pretty clear.
yeah, they don't like that at all.
Oh, that was back here. So we have time for 2 more questions. Okay, back there.
So I wonder, in the early days of the trip, so in the 60s and 70s, or even just in general, were most of the participants, most of the counselors, so-called Guaishanren, or were there any Taiwanese at all?
No, they were all Waichangren. They were all the kids of the KMT officials in the early days. So that was because it was like a really prestigious thing to be in this program. So they were kind of like the KMT youth. Yeah, that's a good question. So it was very much, they were really upholding the party line.
Did anyone ever talk about 288 or anything like
No.
that?
Absolutely not. No. Nothing that had any dissent from the KMT. Because when I went, I was still martial law. So definitely not any of that stuff.
Okay, last question. Right here.
Washington means people who came over from China after the revolution, after the Civil War. So the people who came and colonized Taiwan from China in 1940. The KMT.
Hi Valerie, hi Christina. You know I'm a big fan of you both. I'm an Izzy Yoga supporter. I hope that this will inspire like Love Boat reunions. Does that happen?
There were a whole bunch of Love Boat reunions in the 90s. It was really amazing.
I have to ask my
social
friend.
media.
Yeah, I have Bill Lynn. He's a doctor in Dallas now, but he went on the trip in the 80s out there. And then one thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if you've heard about this, but you probably have, Valerie, because you've been in Taiwan so much, but it's very popular now to have summer camps in Taiwan for Asian American kids. I'm actually thinking about taking my son, who's going to be 10 next summer, to one of these summer camps. And apparently there are summer camps with all kinds of themes, from like Pokemon to, you know, it's very catering to like the Asian Americans and Asian diaspora sensibilities. And the parents and the families like go and they do an Airbnb and everybody just goes and hangs out in Taiwan for a couple weeks. So I think it's just a totally fascinating phenomenon.
Yeah.
Thank you for making the film. Thank you for everything.
You know, the U.S., Taiwan is a client state of the United States, even though they don't have official diplomatic relationships with them. So they're like one of the buffer states against Taiwan and China. So that's probably, you know, they're always trying to reach out to the U.S. And so this is like, Love Boat's just a form of soft power in Taiwan and U.S. recommended. Yeah, so it's very complicated. Like, I mean, the hardest part of this making this movie was to get all of this complicated political stuff in a coherent form that wasn't too boring. So, so there's a lot left out. Like, but then, you know, we try to keep it going.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. But I just want to remind you all that we have a second screening of the film tomorrow night in the same space. So please tell your friends. It's not yet at Rush. And I want to thank Valerie and all of you for being here tonight. And thank you so much. Our daughter and I
it.